Welcome to The Wandering Drew. I am Drew. This week, I will finally discuss an upgrade to a piece of equipment that I made. In the last episode, I discussed the thoughts and factors that I used and considered when making an upgrade to a piece of equipment. I also discussed what led me to not only need the upgrade, but also finally decide to actually make that upgrade. On this episode, I will display and discuss the new jacket and some of its features. Stay tuned. Welcome back and thank you for joining me. This episode and the previous episode go hand in hand. So if you haven't watched them, you may want to go back and watch it. I'm going to put a link up above me to that video. In that episode, I discussed some of the factors that go into my decision to upgrade. So while you can watch this episode and it's a standalone episode, some of the context might make better sense if you watch that video first. This week, I will discuss my old jacket and the jacket that I decided to purchase and upgrade with, which is now my new jacket. And I'm upgrading several items of equipment because I'm planning on doing the Alabama portion of the Pinhoti Trail in January of 2021. That trip, in January, I'm anticipating colder weather. And I realized that some of my gear fell short in preparing me for that type of weather over several days. I won't be doing a video on each upgrade at this time, but I will do one in the future at some point after I've gotten to use those pieces of equipment in the field and in actual, hopefully, cold weather conditions. And after using the equipment in the field, I hope to be able to give a little brief review of my experiences with the equipment. Well, enough of the housekeeping stuff, and let's get on with my jacket upgrade. In September of 2018, right before I tried to do the Foothills Trail for the first time, I purchased a jacket off of Amazon. And that jacket I purchased for $49.31. I thought I got a good buy, remember? It was a Craghoppers Comp Light 2 jacket. And this is the jacket now. And I don't remember how long it took to be delivered, but it was Amazon, so it was pretty fast. I don't think it was 2-day delivery. I think it took a little longer. I seem to remember that I had to wait extra time because the jacket was actually shipped from England to arrive to me. That's where the seller was. So, and this is the jacket here. It's a black, I wouldn't say it's a puffy light jacket. It's got nice quilting. It's actually not a bad jacket. I was planning, like I said, a hike in the Foothills Trails in November, so the temperature could be very low. As it turned out, it was in the 20s, upper to mid 20s when I went hiking there. So I definitely needed a jacket, and I needed a winter jacket. And with layering, this jacket actually worked for me. I was quite warm. I used this jacket only really at night to sleep in or when I got to camp and was no longer hiking. So it did work. I layered it with other stuff underneath. I had a fleece and another shirt underneath to keep me warm, and it worked pretty much. So I knew the weather was going to be cold, or quite cold potentially, like I said, so I wanted to be prepared. And I felt this was a good choice. It wasn't bad for me, like I said, it worked, but it wasn't a good choice. This jacket is light, packs up small. It actually packs into one of its pockets, so it is quite packable. It has a hood, which is a feature that I like. I think it prevents cold air from getting in. And it worked well for me on that trip. And the trip I took where I actually completed the Foothills Trail in February of the next year. And once again, I was fortunate. It was pretty chilly and I was cold on that trip, but I didn't get a lot of rain or freezing rain, which would have made it a lot worse. And this jacket, while not being extremely warm, is good for cool to cold weather, especially if, like I did, you're doing layering. Since it worked for me on that trip and the next trip in February where it was cold and it kind of worked for me, it gave me a false sense of security that this jacket was a good one and was good for cold weather. And that was my mistake. But this year in March, just prior to the lockdowns and the trails shutting, I was in Tennessee and I was planning on doing some hiking. And I only got one hike in because they actually closed the trails in that area. And the temperatures in Mountain City during those days, low 30s. And I only kept warm if I was hiking. But since I didn't get to hike, I actually spent time in what could only be equated to a box with no heat. And I was freezing. I was constantly cold for pretty much 5 days. I was attending a hiking workshop at the time. So I spent every day in cold weather conditions with virtually no heat. The only chance I got to get heat was when I actually got in my car to pick up food. And even those trips were not enough to warm me up. So I spent virtually 5 days freezing. The first time I got to really warm up was when I started driving home and I could stay in my car with the heat on for a prolonged time. And that was the first chance I got to get warm in about 5 days. And I wore this jacket every day for 5 days straight. Even when I was sleeping, I was wearing this and I was still cold in my sleeping bag with this jacket. I just could not get warm. And this was unusual for me. Usually I'm actually quite warm and I feel warm and I don't have a problem with the cold. But those days I was cold and I was really surprised by that. And that's when I realized that I definitely will probably need a warmer jacket. And I had been out in cold weather, even colder weather, but the difference was it was damp. There was rain when I was there. Matter of fact, it snowed one day and it was so damp and cold that with the temperatures, I just was not able to get warm. When I was on my Foothills Trail just a month prior, it had gotten into the 20s. And there was one night that I was really cold. Similar, I was actually shivering in my sleeping bag and couldn't get warm and I couldn't get a lot of sleep. I actually drifted off to sleep and ended up waking up about 4:30, I think, and I started getting dressed and started hiking in order to get warm. And I was cold with this jacket on, but once I started hiking, I warmed up and I didn't make the connection. But when the following month in March, I had the same problem, I realized more than likely I needed to change some of my equipment to get better protection against the cold weather if I was going to continue going hiking in colder weather. I also decided then that I was going to upgrade some of my other equipment that would help me be better prepared for colder weather. And as I am currently planning a trip on the Pinhoti Trail, which will most likely take place in January of 2021, during the winter when cold weather is possible, this became important. So while I haven't been able to go hiking as much in colder weather, I started looking around and examining reviews, reading what was going on with products, new products that have come out, reviews, and I decided at this point it's probably best for me to start gathering some equipment and make a purchase of a jacket. Because historical average temperatures on the Pinhoti Trail during January are in the cold weather range. The highs are usually 57, but the lows are 36. Now, obviously, I could get warmer or colder, but if I'm going hiking, I need to plan for the low 30s as a norm for every single night. So no matter what the temperatures are, if they're cold enough, I want to be prepared, and I don't want to feel like I did back in March in Mountain City, Tennessee. So that brings me to, finally, what type of jacket did I purchase? Well, I decided to purchase a jacket from Montbell, and I purchased the Superior Down Parka. It cost me $209 out the door, so to say, delivered to me. And I bought it directly from Montbell, USA. And here is how the jacket arrived in this box. Unmarked, except for their name. And here is the jacket. And this is pretty much how it came in the bag. I bought a blue color. It's my favorite. I seem to have a problem. I almost bought the black, but I thought I would get a little color and didn't like some of the other colors. But I have obviously an affinity for blue. Seems to be most of my stuff is blue, and I seem to like it. And the jacket, on first opinion, is extremely light. The box feels like it's empty. That's how light this is. And I'm going to go into some of the stats on it. But let me just show it off. And it does have a hood, which is why I bought the parka. They do have some warmer jackets, but I decided to get this one because I like having a hood. And there's reasons for that as well. So this is what the jacket looks like. You can tell it's quite bigger than this one, but it's also warmer. And I'm going to go over some of these features. I looked at many jackets during my research and planning this purchase. And at first, I was going to actually purchase a jacket from another well-known brand that is actually twice the price of this one. But I now appreciate the cost, and I understand it's expensive to get lightweight things, but I just thought that was incredible price for a jacket to pay $400 for a puffy jacket, even though it's consistently rated as the best jacket for hiking and backpacking. I feel this jacket is just as good and just as much, and some of that is because I don't want to say I purchased a bad product, but I also think there's very little separating sometimes one jacket from another, and some of it is going to come down to personal taste and what you're willing to spend or what features you need. And I felt that this was good enough for me and what I needed, and saving $200 allows me to buy some other equipment that I'm probably going to buy. And I'm saying if I was prepared to spend $400 on a jacket, why not buy a jacket and other stuff and save that money or use it or let it pay for a trip that I'm going to do. I appreciate now more and more good equipment, and I'm willing to pay for it, but even that has a limit. But I understand to get lightweight equipment or cutting edge equipment that is warm and does a job that other equipment doesn't, you have to pay for that, and I understand that. But there are some limits to how much I'm willing to pay for stuff. This jacket is extremely light. It's 8.7 ounces. Yes, 8.7 ounces. It has an attached hood. It does have pockets. These were all features I wanted. It's got 800 fill down, which is why it is so packable and warm. And if you don't understand the difference between the different ratings of down and fill, go do some research. There's numerous other sites. Perhaps I'll do a video on it one day, but there's numerous very good videos that explain the difference of the fill size and why it's important. This is also treated with a DWR or a durable water repellent, so it resists getting wet and wetting out. Down is great, but when it gets wet, it doesn't do as well. It also reduces its efficiency. So it's very important to keep your down dry, to let it keep you warm. If down gets wet, the air between the down feathers is reduced, which reduces its ability to keep warm. So it'll actually be colder and won't be as efficient. Additionally, down, once it's really wet, takes a long time to dry, as opposed to a lot of synthetic items. So it'll not only be colder, but it'll be colder longer. And the DWR, or the coating sometimes on the feathers, keeps them from, once they get moisture, from clumping together and allows them to continue to keep air trapped, which in turn keeps you warmer. I thought 800 fill is pretty good. They actually have a jacket that has 1,000 fill down, which I thought about buying, but that jacket does not have a hood on it. And I decided that I wanted a hood. Experience has taught me that I like having a hood during windy and rainy conditions. It keeps drafts from going in or stealing heat from you as they blow past you because it's enclosed. When it's raining, you can put a hat on and keep your head dry, but water will roll off. And when it rolls off and it hits your back or your neck, it'll roll down beneath your jacket. So even though you're warm and you're keeping dry, the water will get in essence, making you cold and wet. defeating the purpose of wearing a jacket in the first place. If you look at the jacket, you'll notice the pattern of the quilting. The quilting goes all the way through. So what it does is it compartmentalizes each little square, keeping the down inside so that you don't get spots with more down or less down, or the down and the fill shifting over time so that you have warmer spots and colder spots. What Montbell calls in their advertisements, sewn through construction. In short, this jacket provides great warmth with low weight, and it takes up a small space in your backpack due to its compressibility. I'm expecting this jacket to deliver what it advertises during the cold weather. The exterior is made of 10 denier material, so it's a little bit thinner than some of the other jackets that are out there. So I will have to worry about, obviously being a little bit gentle on it compared to other stuff. And I am worried about its ability to stand up to the trail, coming against obviously a rock face or a sharp twig or brush and getting a rip or tear. And I would really hate to have my jacket, whether it's new or old, get a tear in it, which would reduce its ability to keep me warm. Montbell claims in its advertising for this product that this material is 3 times more resistant to tearing and 1.5 times more resistant to abrasions due to the tight weave of the material and the way that it's produced. And Montbell calls it ballistic airlight material for the style of the material. Other features of this jacket are zippered pockets, which you can see here and here. So you have 2 hand pockets that are zippered, and the zippers are water resistant, which is important, as is the main zipper. And the shell that I mentioned is 100% nylon of that ballistic airlight material. And I already mentioned the fill is 800 fill. It's 90% down and 10% feathers. And in the event you don't know the difference between down and feathers, down is small fluffy pieces. There actually are feathers as well. They're usually the feathers that are underneath the outer feathers, or these feathers will come off certain areas of a bird, like their chest and their belly, so they're very fine. When we think of feathers or feathers that we're used to, we're looking at usually the feathers that are on the back or the wings of a bird. They generally have a quill portion, which is quite hard and rigid. Down is very fluffy and soft, where the feathers will be hard because they have that quill part in them. So the down will feel soft and won't poke you and feel rough, where the feather itself, which is only 10% of the fill, might have a quill or feel harder or rougher and won't be quite as soft. And generally, down will last longer, and the feathers with the quills, that is, will not generally last as long. They're more prone to wear out and degrade over time, where the down or the fluff doesn't. And now for some of the details that I know people always want to know. I ordered this jacket, as I said, directly from Montbell, USA on September 20th of 2020. And it was delivered by UPS on September 25th, 2020. So roughly 5 days total from the time I purchased till the time it was delivered. I would also like to point out that on the 20th, which is the day I ordered it after business hours. So in reality, they got this to me within 4 days. And as I already mentioned, I paid $209 total for the jacket, including shipping. And kudos to Montbell. The jacket weighs exactly on my scale what Montbell advertises it weighs on their website. And that is 8.7 ounces or 246 grams. And it should be noted that this jacket comes with a stuff sack. And with the stuff sack, this jacket weighs 8.9 ounces, an increase of roughly 7 grams. And I know this because I weighed the jacket when I first got it several times, and I was getting 8.9 ounces. And I didn't really think about it. And let's face it, when you first get a jacket, what are you interested in? The product itself. The stuff sack doesn't even come to mind. I didn't even think about it. I totally forgot about it until I was weighing it. I was getting a higher than published weight, and I figured it's inaccurate. But in reality, when I started searching through the jacket, I opened up the pocket. And in the pocket is the stuff sack, which, when removed, brought the weight back down to 8.7 ounces, exactly as is advertised on Montbell's website. So good to them. There was no note or anything. I guess they figure you'll find the stuff sack and just use it. The jacket I was using before, the Craghoppers jacket, weighs 1 pound and 0.3 of an ounce, or 460 grams. This upgrade should theoretically keep me warmer. It also reduces my weight by 214 grams, or 7.55 ounces. And to me, that's a considerable weight loss. It's roughly 87% of the weight of the jacket itself by upgrading. So I've almost halved my weight as it regards to the jacket by purchasing this jacket. So I see that as a win-win. So hopefully that explains why I upgraded, the thoughts that went into my decision process, what I actually bought, and what the advantages are. Since the current weather is really not cold enough when I'm recording this in early October, I have not had a chance to wear the jacket out in cold weather conditions. So its effectiveness remains to be seen. And obviously, as soon as I use it on the trail in cold weather, I'll be sure to give a review or report back on that. And I am going to also try it on for you so you can see the fit. Okay, so I decided to take it out on location and head outside so I can try on the jacket. I ruined my first take or two, so I figured let me come out where I have a little bit more room and I can show you the jacket and some of its features on me, which I described inside. So this is the jacket in the stuff sack, 8.9 ounces with the stuff sack, 8.7 ounces without the stuff sack. Just the jacket itself. And I'm still on the fence of whether I'll bring the stuff sack with me or not. Might just be a good thing to have. It doesn't weigh very much. And so I'm just going to stick that stuff sack away. And once again, I got a medium size. I am 5'8", and on a good day, when I haven't had a big lunch, I weigh 170 pounds. Yesterday was a weekend day, and I gotta admit, I had some barbecue, so I'm probably 173, 174 today. Something like that. We'll say 175, we'll round up. The jacket goes on quite easy. Hopefully I'm not distorting the sound too much with the microphone. It feels comfortable. It does feel not snug on me at all. It feels comfortable. It's very lightweight. I can tell I'm wearing it, but I don't feel it binding on me or being tight. And even if I bring my arms fully around and do something like as if I was doing work, I don't feel any binding. And I'm going to show you on the side and even in the back, across the shoulder blades. When I do this, I don't feel a tightness or like a holding back. So to me, the medium size fits me perfectly at this point. Obviously, it's warm out here. It's probably about 70-something degrees. Haven't used it, obviously, in cold weather. I can't talk about it. I do like the jacket. It seems to fit good. It's got the elastic bands to keep, the cold air out, and more importantly, water from probably going in. I like the fact that it does have some adjustments. You can adjust the hood at the top. If I zipper it all the way up, it protects your neck and your chin if you really want to tuck it in. And you can use the drawstrings to bring it a little tighter. It's got like a little bill, not very much. I most likely, like most hikers, I'll probably be wearing a hat underneath. So an extra layer of warmth. But what I like about a hood, and as I said, when it rains, I've had experience, if you're just wearing a jacket, the water rolls down your back and you end up getting wet anyway underneath. And if it's cold and wet, that's usually a problem. You can see the jacket comes basically just below the waist. I'd say, mid-butt area on me. It's not tight at all. There's not a lot of room. I don't think there's going to be a lot of air exchange. It's not like it's riding up on me. I haven't walked in it or hiked in it though. And it does have the adjustments. There is a drawstring here that you can adjust. And I've seen a lot of people have complained about these, but because they're so small, they say, but they're not any smaller to me than any of the drawstrings with locks that I have on a lot of my other equipment, whether it's a sleeping bag or my pack. It seems to have the same type of, lock on it and size So I don't think they're really any particular smaller. The cord itself seems to be a little bit smaller. So if that's what they're talking about, it's a very thin, light cord, but you're not really getting heavy duty out of this. I don't see the need to really cinch this jacket down because it's pretty close fitting as it is. Maybe if I had a much larger size, I would probably need to do that if it didn't fit me as closely as I think this jacket does. And they're the same locks, pretty much, that I have, like I said, on my pack. There's also a drawstring for the hood. You can cinch that down. So if you do have the hood up and you need to, you can cinch it down. That would give me a little more protection from the wind and the rain hitting my face and getting underneath the hood and possibly going into the jacket underneath, but yet keeping all that warmth in. So you can see what it would look like. I'm hopefully talking into my mic still. So you can see how, and you can lock these down as well. So you can see how, it would give you enough of a view to keep you hiking or walking to see where you're going, but protect you as much as possible from any wind or rain. And I gotta say, I'm getting pretty warm in here right now. So let me open that up. Yeah, it's getting a little hot in here. So, but like I said, it's probably about 70, 75 degrees here. Other than that, like I said, it does have the 2 pockets. It seems to be the same drawstring, passes from in the pocket down to the waist into these locks. And there's a little loop to hold it in place, which I like. And then that's the lock. And then you can either tighten it from here or you can tighten it from inside your pocket, which I think is an innovative idea. If your hands are in your pocket and you're feeling a little cold, you don't have to take your hands out of your pocket to draw it. You can just do it from inside. And it seems to be a nice feature. You can see if I do, it does ride up obviously a little bit to my waistline. So if I was probably grabbing or pulling or climbing up something, it would ride up a little bit. Of course, I have no pack on. I have no other gear underneath this, and it's in really warm weather. So I'm just describing my initial things in it, but it feels good and it feels light and it's definitely warm. Other than that, that is the jacket. I'm happy with the purchase so far. And of course, like always happens to me in life, I decided to purchase this jacket, and I see Montbell came out with some new jackets that are kind of a go-between between their heavier, more alpine type stuff and their very lightweight stuff. So there's 1 or 2 jackets in there I might have thought about getting, but they are heavier. They're in the 13 to 14 ounce range, which is still pretty light for a good jacket, and they actually have pretty much heavier fill. So it's a possibility that if you don't want to go ultra lightweight, but you still want a good jacket, and it's in the same price range, believe it or not, but there are options out there, okay? And you have to realize that. If you like one without a hood, they make one without a hood. I just like the hood for rainy and very cold situations. I find that I like having that protection around my neck, and mostly in the rain, I don't want water rolling down my back. I don't know if I would be wearing this in the rain as much as I, am mentioning, because I do have a raincoat. But if it's a really heavy downpour, I'm probably not going to want to get my down all wet. I'm probably going to put a rain jacket on top of it, which has a hood. So I don't know if that's a little bit of redundancy, but for a light rain, more often than not, I probably would just hike in this if it was really cold rain, or I might go to the rain jacket. It would depend. I haven't really hiked with either one of them. My rain jacket is good as a rain jacket, but I don't think it's really that warm. So if it was a very cold day or a cold rain, I probably would have to wear this underneath it in order to keep warm, especially if I did get wet. I wanted you to be able to see the jacket. I wanted to try it on so you could see how it fits. And if there's any questions on that fit, like I said, that's why I give out my height and weight, so you can judge for yourself whether this would be a good fit or not for you. Like I said, I was wrestling with between the medium and the large, as I often do, but I tend to go to the medium. I also feel I don't want something overly big on me and loose. 1, the extra weight, and 2, just the ill fit. It would let air in, and it just doesn't feel good. So I'd rather have something that fits me a little better. So I go with the medium first. I felt that if it didn't fit me, I could always return it and exchange it for a larger size, and that would not be a big deal. So I did try it on, just like I'm doing now before I cut the tags off, to make sure that it did indeed feel comfortable. So that's it. So that's my decision to upgrade my jacket and what jacket I got. And more often, like I said, this was supposed to be one episode. It was supposed to be me upgrading my jacket and the decisions that led me into it. But once I started talking about it and deciding to give the backstory, and I decided to leave that in there because I think it's important to understand, where I'm at today, because you understand where I came from and what I started and the factors that go into me thinking about upgrading. So knowing those factors, and that's going to be like my go-to for most of my upgrades is this something that's going to improve what I have now? Does it do something better or more that I need? Not just because it's a better piece of equipment or it costs more or it weighs less, but does it do something? Does it bring something to my pack that something else doesn't? This jacket to me provides more warmth and the greater ability for me to hike in the colder weather, which is what I'm doing right now a majority of the time. So I feel that I needed to purchase this jacket. Now, I still have this jacket along with my older jacket. I'm not getting rid of it. I'll probably hold on to it. And if I go maybe hiking in the spring or like a trip I'm planning next month, which is probably, I'll probably have already done by the time you see this, in November in Ocala, I don't think I'll need a really heavy jacket. I might take this just hoping that I get some cold weather, but if the weather's gonna be warm, like in the 50s or 60s at night, more than likely I'll probably still bring that jacket because this jacket will be too warm for it. So you have to find the right tool for the right job. And that was the reason why I started into that long story about equipment. And I decided to split this into 2 episodes and leave it intact because I think, I try to do these from the point of view of a new person that's camping or hiking or backpacking, and they may not have the same knowledge and experience as everyone else. So I try to be very comprehensive in the coverage. So sometimes it seems like I'm explaining something that most of us take for granted, but you have to realize, remember when you first started, or when I first started, that you didn't know those things. You had to learn them or pick them up from other people or read them in an article somewhere. So sometimes it's best to cover everything from the basics going up. So sometimes I feel like I'm being very rudimentary and going over things that people know. Even myself, I kind of leave them out, and then when I read it, and especially, I have someone else read it that's not a hiker or a camper, and then they start asking me questions. And then I realize in that proofreading and editing process that I need to add some more stuff in because my experience has gone beyond that, and I think that everybody else sometimes has that same knowledge and experience, and we have to remember that not everybody does. So that explains a little bit about my philosophy in the writing of the episode and why this was so long and why it became 2 episodes, which led me to re-record stuff. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you coming back week after week to watch the videos and the good comments and positive feedback I receive. It's gratifying to know that these are helping people on some level. It's very rewarding. So thank you so much. If you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing to the channel. Leave a comment below, good, bad, otherwise. Any thoughts, any opinions. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch the videos. Give me a thumbs up if you feel so inclined and you enjoyed this video. And tell a friend about the videos as well. Maybe they'll enjoy it. Till we meet again. And I purchased their superior down, and I purchased the superior down parka.